Earlier we were talking about the story. Now it's being shared, right? Am I sharing my screen or not?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No,
Okay, here
sir,
we
we
go.
cannot.
Let me share. There you go. Because when I stop this recording, here we go. How's that? It's visible.
Nothing. Just black screen.
No, I
Where
can
is
see,
it?
sir.
Got it now.
I see it.
All right, it refreshed. It could be some internet speed issue. So we were talking about in the like previous class, we talked about stories, epic, and features, right? Over here, I'm giving you guys kind of example. We are going into the continuation of this previous class because we did not get enough time to give you guys kind of differentiation between like kind of live examples of those user type or epics. I mean, feature, epic, or a user story. So I was giving example over here, like, there could be a mobile app user, or a user could be on the web application, right? So over here, we define it like user type. It could be a feature, kind of role based, right? And then we divide it into the epics. Epics could be well, first of all, if you use a mobile app, right, you need to have a proper registration before you log on. If you're unable, if you're not registered, how you can properly log on, right? So that's why we have divided registration and login. And then the third one is my account. And the web user is the same, repeat and rinse. Like it could be registration, login, my account, but just capture only registration over here as an example to capture it to fit into this screen. So on the registration piece, we divided into like again the ingredient and the topic, the core characteristics of the Scrum is to fit everything into the 2 weeks of sprint, right? For example, companies have 6 months of variations, in waterfall methodology, 6 months of projects, right? So you are breaking down 6 months of project into smaller projects, smaller pieces like MVP into the 2 weeks, right? So how you fit your work. So if you have broken down into the smallest possible work, then definitely it's doable. So that's where is one of the example over here I'm showing you guys as a user story in the form of like as a user story, I can register for the application by entering my email, password, and confirming my password, which is purely simple, use case, right, or workflow. The next one, it could be like, as a user, I will receive a confirmation email once I have registered for the application. Remember, whenever we register ourselves, we receive an email, right? Confirmation that, okay, you are successfully registered. So again, earlier I was talking about, the question could be in your mind, it cannot be like, combined together, those two stories. But again, if you keep evolving this, like building that kind of habit to like to bundle your work, then it's kind of one of the anti-pattern of Scrum or Agile, because you have to stick with the philosophy of breaking down your work into the smallest possible effort, so you can deliver in few hours. You can deliver in day. The total sprint length could be only 10 days, because when we say 2 weeks, we say 2 weeks working days, like not including weekdays. So those are total in reality 10 days. So you have to keep that in mind. Within 10 days, you have to do your anything analysis if needed, or development and testing, and then user acceptance testing if possible as well. So in order to cover whole all phases of SDLC within 2 weeks, that's where you have to stick with the smallest possible work that you have to break it down. It could be some effort like in hours quickly, no matter, but you have to stick with that mindset. So that's why you see this story separate than the other one. So the next one is, as a user, I can register for the application through Facebook. So the next one is, remember when you register yourself, it gives you these days an option to use your Facebook credentials, or to use your Google credentials, those type of thing. Even you guys can include Google as well. The next one is, as the user, I can upload a profile picture and add my name to my account. Another one of the scenario rather than purely formal registration, because for the brainstorming purposes they want to give you an option that you guys can think this way as well. It could be registration, or it could be creating a profile, right? So you guys can name anything. It doesn't have to be registration. If product owner comes up, hey, to me registration doesn't look like really classic or old mine. Let's do it profile creation or something. So that's where you can say you can upload your profile, and you can add your name, you can edit later. Those are so many other stories can be part of this registration. The next one is login. Once you are successfully registered, um, you have to make sure you are successfully logged into the system, get to the system as well. Over here, as a user, I can log in into the application by entering my email and password. Kind of happy path, right? Simple, pure, by using valid email and password. There could be some negative scenarios as well. When I say happy path and negative, those are testing terms actually. When we say if you are attempt and you are login and you are logging successfully, it's pure, simple, happy path. Happy path means without any error, without any other scenarios that could be possible. For example, you enter wrong username, right? User ID, or you enter a wrong password. Those are all we call them in testing world negative scenarios. So when you say happy path means simple, pure, smooth path scenarios. I hope it helps you to understand you guys as well, and on QA testing side as well, if when we use those terms. So um, first one is simple, pure, successfully entering login. Other one, as a user, I can log into the application through Facebook if I previously registered with it. Remember, we mentioned we gave example using Facebook credentials as well, or even you guys can add Google as well, right? As a user, I can reset my password if I have forgotten my password. So much variations as well, with those login. As I mentioned, you guys can also say, as a user, I'm unable to log in using my wrong credentials. When you say wrong credentials, you can also split it into two ways as well, like using wrong user ID. First story. The other story could be using wrong password. So many variations. You guys can break down wherever you want. But the idea is to consume the philosophy, right? What are we going to achieve? That's where the backlog grooming or refinement sessions comes handy, where the team combines together, sit together, and they talk about it. Is there something missing in the scenarios or not? If something is missing, create another story, right? And then talk about it and groom it. The next one is Epic is my account. As a user, I can view my personal information. Those are really self-explanatory scenarios. As a user, I can edit my profile photo. Remember, these are the simplest, smallest user stories. Don't try to combine them. Don't build that habit. Otherwise, you are not you are defeating the purpose of breaking down to the smallest possible work. Smallest and faster. Keep that in mind, right? So as a user, I can edit my email. I will receive confirmation email to view and all those things. I don't want to go at every single word, but the next one, same thing could be applicable to the web user as well. Over here, as you guys can see, same scenarios listing down, but our variation is different. Now user is logging in from their app, from the web application using Windows like a laptop, or maybe like mobile based Chrome or any other browser. So there are so many variations. I hope this is really kind of good, crystal clear example of user type or feature, whatever you call, or epic, and a user story. Any questions on this? Okay. All
No.
right. All right. So the next question could be, when we say user story, remember we talked about it. So breaking down into the user story to itself, like into the smaller pieces itself as well. So this is another kind of visual of this kind of scenario where you can relate that. For example, user. Remember in the previous class I gave you example user story as a piece of cake, right? That has multiple layers. Correct. I heard a beep. Can someone admit or watch the lobby? Or they're still waiting in the lobby? the users? I mean, can someone? I need a volunteer to admit the folks. Are you guys able to bring the folks into the lobby and I mean from the lobby to the class or not? Because last time I heard there was one student, he was keep waiting, waiting, no one admitted him. I said, I'm sorry about that. While I'm sharing, it's really hard to do multitasking. So should I go
Sure,
back and
I can do that, but how to do, if you can tell me, please. Sorry, I don't know about that.
you'll see this people and you
Okay.
guys can see over here anyone is if it's waiting there is a kind of admit lobby or watch lobby that's where it gives you an option but right now I believe everyone is admitted no one is waiting in the lobby but there will kind of pop-ups or you might hear a beep if I hear a beep then I will call it out as well to
Okay, I will
watch the
take care of
lobby.
it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So where I was, here we go. So we were talking about breaking down story itself as well. Remember, I was using the example of kind of a layer, cake that have multiple layers, right? It could have chocolate layer or could have any other kind of, whatever flavor you like, cream, all those things, right? So same way, because we remember we are fitting SDLC into that small iteration, right? So the story itself have multiple actually tasks associated with that as well, because it could have a user experience like GUI, graphical user interface, or it could have any backend piece, for example, database related changes. Now we are talking about a little bit technical terms, but over here, I hope this will be self-explanatory to understand this concept in terms of, for example, one of the example is as a user, I can enter a password. This is simple password. Estimation we not just ignore for now. This is our next topic actually of this class. Priority as well, little, which is kind of really, is the headache of the product owner define the product, the priority. But let's see over here, the acceptance criteria, right? Password must, uh, password match validated, contains special characters. Remember, we have so many restrictions these days, especially so for the security purposes. It should be minimum 10 characters, cannot be text only, right? It should have number or special characters combination. So what we do is we drill down. We apparently it looks very simple story, right? That can be really developed very quickly. But look at these tasks that are associated with this. Design the user interface first. Like, it's not something that user ID is on the top and then password is really in the corner somewhere, right? It's called graphical user interface. It's called user experience another way as well, another like different. It should be in the middle, so like more visual, easily to understand, and also it could it could be also compatible with other browsers as well. Multiple. It's not something that's only on Chrome, right? And it's not working on the IE. So those called kind of cross-browser testing that we do. But again, the idea is those bullets we talked about it is like design user interface, develop CSS or HTML, create database fields, right? Because it has to be stored somewhere, right? It's not something that you just only enter and then go away. How can it can be matched with the database? So database is a kind of repository where you store the data. Create database fields, develop validation criteria. How you guys want to match exactly, or in order to avoid any duplication, right? Write test cases, code test over here. Now, development and testing comes handy. Code test fixture, unit testing is at development level. Acceptance testing, where the product owner feels more comfortable, are testers, like business testers, users that they accept as a sign off. Usability testing, right? Online help text. Those are again, these are the examples of the tasks associated with one simple user story of entering a password. Look at now how eye-opening is this one of the example. You think that it's quite simple, right? That can be like, that too. Oh, for me, it's just only enter user and password or something, right? Or you want to enter password. As a user, I can enter passwords in simple word. But look at those associated tasks that are broken down. And those are development piece as well as the testing piece that has to be done. So again, apparently user story, when you're estimating it, which is our next topic, Keep these tasks are slide in mind. Okay. Oh, sorry. You asked for the control. Okay, sorry about that. I thought you were waiting for in the lobby. Okay. All right, I'm going into the next.
Actually, I cannot see any option to see if somebody is waiting in the lobby. So maybe because you are the
Okay.
admin, so you can see that only.
All right, just ignore it for now. If I hear a beep, then I'll call it out. So remember we talked about the estimation right here. When you say estimate, 8 points. So now this is our interesting topic. Is gonna talk. Is everyone is aware of pointing poker? Have you guys heard about it? Or planning poker? Or none of those?
No.
Okay. All right. So we will. I will share the session with you, and we will actually estimate one story. But before that, you have to understand what is that user story. What is the a story point? Actually, before you apply it, right? So if this is really a frequent question that you might say, you may face this in during your interviews, because when you say in PMP, actually, this is called work breakdown structure, where you calculate those numbers for in terms of hours, right? In terms of budgeting, like how much it will cost, how much it will, how long it will take, right? Those type of things. Same thing over here. Like, aside from budgeting, the first question you say is like time, right? Because we are shrinking or breaking down that big piece of project, a holistic approach, right? I know I keep giving example 6 months. It could be 1 year. It could be more than a year as well, right? To smallest piece of it into 2 weeks, right? So the goal is to fit everything in 2 weeks, and this is another one of the example. Like breaking one practice is breaking the stories into smallest pieces. When we say smallest pieces, how you measure it, right? So there should be some kind of measuring criteria. For example, let me give you example in terms of grams. When you buy something in terms of pounds or grams, how you measure it, because there should be some scale to measure it. When you say to the shop store owners, hey, I need 200 grams of sugar or something, right? So how they measure it? So there should be kind of measuring criteria. They don't blindly go and just grab a bag and give it to you, but they measure it somehow using scale or somehow. So that's also same thing over here. So for example, if you see, if you uh, conceptually imagine that in a sprint, 2 weeks of sprint, how much we can commit, how much work that we can deliver, where you start. In terms of there should be somehow measuring criteria as well, right? So you can assess and come up with kind of a high level estimate. Again, keep that in mind. The word is estimate, not actuals. When we do planning always starts with estimates, and that's where our story points and user stories and story points are input to the sprint planning. First thing, because you do, first of all, you like, story point or sizing. Sizing is another word that we use. You do sizing and story points to your backlog first, and then prioritize the backlog and then bring it to the sprint. Remember the input, the workflow, I explained it to you in the previous classes, right? So I mean, my point, the whole idea bringing this story point into the over here in Scrum practice is to measure somehow and coming up with the estimates. So how you can say that we can like, commit, or we can deliver like only the wheels of a car in this sprint? Why not the doors itself? No, because the effort and the amount of work that it will need for only for 2 weeks, we can deliver only one week. We can design only the rear wheels, not even the front wheels. Think about this perspective. So you have the freedom to say that. Actually, remember, agile teams are empowered, right, to do their planning. No one will mess up with you guys. If they do, then they need a coaching, no matter if it's stakeholders or whoever is poking into your work. But you have the control, but at the same time, you have to come up with somehow numbers, right? It's not something that you blindly just give an estimate and then you feel guilty. Oh, I mean, we put a very less, we did poor planning, or we provided very rough estimates or poor estimates. So how, when you say estimates, so there should be some criteria, right? The goal of this whole discussion and keeping this to the slide is to provide somehow like unit of measurement in terms of how our work will be assessed, how you weigh your work, right, and how you deliver in a way that it could be easier for all of the team members. Let's take a look at the example over here, like in terms of like definitions. A unit of measurement for estimating the overall effort needed to fully deliver a backlog item. A backlog item, when you say backlog item, remember what could be the backlog item? Anyone? Use the story. So, it could be Epic. You also provide estimates to Epic as well, and then you break it down into the smaller piece, which is user story. So backlog item, it could be the best answer is to it could be Epic, it could be a user story or a task or anything. So those are part of backlog item. Remember, backlog means the overall wish list of a product owner, not specific to only sprint yet. We are not there yet. We from estimation standpoint. First of all, you have to estimate a high level overall effort of the whole project, and then break it down into the smaller iterations, just like sprints, and then do a refinement again. That's why that is one of the reason backlog refinement and backlog grooming are continuous ceremonies. They are never ending. Remember, non-stop like ceremonies that you have to execute during the Scrum adaptation. So getting to the next point again, I'm not a big fan of getting to the only definition like by books or dictionary definitions. What you can say is what is the user story in the simple word is a unit of measurement to provide your estimate for a backlog item. Simple. It could be a user story, it could be a task, it could be an epic. So where you measure your effort when you start working on something. So you remember that's why we have different measurement unit of measurement in terms of grams, liters, or gallons, or whatever you call. So over here we are measuring using story points in Agile or Scrum world, simple word. In simple is something decided and used by Agile teams to provide a relative estimates of effort for completing requirements actually. So remember, the user stories are smallest part of requirement. Remember, smallest requirement. So that's why you have to complete the requirements you need to estimate. They're intended to make estimation process easier. Instead of estimating in hours, team consider only how much effort a product backlog item will require. That's why they're carefully over here is being used backlog item, not the user story itself only, because the expectation, that's where the actually different industry leaders, they debate with you actually. They said, I mean, you only provide estimates for the user stories. Is it a true statement or false? It's false, because you don't provide not only the user story, you provide the estimates for all the backlog item. It could be anything, as I mentioned before. Relative to the other product backlog, let me admit someone in the lobby. There might be, here we go. I see, here we go. AA. Okay. All right. Coming back to the points. So simple words, wherever you measure something, you need a measuring unit, right? So in over here in Agile Scrum, simple, we are using story points to measure. That's it. Not no complex anything else. Yes, later there are some complex practices that we adapt that we can consider to provide our estimates. That is our next slide actually. Story points. First of all, it's relative estimated, not time-based. Why? Because, for example, if you have work done in the past, similar work, remember, keep that in mind, relative. Relative means you can relate your work to a simple, same level or same work that you have done in the past, or or you have example in front of you that you can relate. Oh, this login, we in the past we did it and it was only like 2 points or very less effort. So this time we're gonna estimate a little bit less because earlier in the past since we were doing for the first time we estimated it higher. So that's how team learns gradually. So there are no like right or wrong answers. If you guys provide estimates higher, fine, you will learn it, right? You will retrospect. That's where the beauty of retrospective is about. Team will talk about it, but it's not, you don't dictate the team. Let them learn from their mistakes. Next one is based on effort. Okay, story, how much effort when we say effort, it's not only time actually. It's a kind of it could be kind of resources based like their availability as well as skill set, training, all those things as well. Like amount of work is one of them. Complexity, there you go. Based on effort when you say amount of work, like how many hours or days it will take, but at the same time question yourself how complex it is. It could be simple in terms of delivery standpoint, right? Like complexity standpoint, it could be straightforward, but it may take longer because there are so many like variation. Remember the bullet points that I was showing you? Database, GUI, user experience, all those things. So it could be like taking longer, but it could be simple in terms of like functionality standpoint. And the next factor that you have to consider when you provide estimate in terms of effort is uncertainty about the work. Like you are not sure until you start actually working on it. Okay, this is very interesting, like a situation where, for example, there are some developers that are not like so much experience, but we cannot bar them or outline, hey, like you cannot join our team because you're not well experienced. No, not like that. But there could be some of like you have to train them and bring them on a board and give them opportunity. They may be there could be it could be so much unknown for them because they have not started actually developing, or even the same applies to the experienced developers as well, because it's a technology. There could be some compatibility issue, it could be some browser issue or any other technology that you're using, cloud issue, or so many variations. Unknown means you will get answer from your team members. Oh, we will get to the reality when we will start working on it. There are a lot of unknowns. We don't know this piece, how the design like will work, something like that. So if there are so much ambiguity out there or uncertain work out there, estimate higher. So these are the like factors that you have to consider, and risks as well. Oh, another good thing is like it's pretty risky in terms of risk could be so many ways. I mean, I know it's a big word, right? But risky in terms of like effort, or when you start working on it, you face so many challenges because you are actually working on it, where other you are just planning for it, right? So those are type of four factors that you have to consider in mind when you are providing the estimates. So not time is one of them, amount of work. Right now, these days, most of the agile teams have mindset. They only consider the effort in their mind, like amount of work that it will take. Based on that, they provide the estimates, which is kind of one of the anti-pattern of agile or Scrum, because you have to, as a Scrum master, you have to keep reminding them that okay, I know I get it that it will take only 2 days, right? But like think about from complexity standpoint as well. Are there any unknowns or uncertainty? Are there any risks? So as a Scrum Master, I keep reminding them. Okay, I do my part. Let them like figure out, and if they agree, I always go with team agreements because that's how Agile works. Always team agreements are very important because if something is agreed upon and if it doesn't work, then it's the overall. Remember, you fail as a team, right? Again, as a part of like successful as you are successful as a team, you get to the finish line as a team, and then your failure is also you accept it as a team as well, right? So I always go, okay, if everyone agrees, fine, I will estimate it 8 points or something, but I keep reminding them that like with team agreement we are putting these many estimates. It's not my call. It's not only one developer call, or anyone else. Don't dictate that. I as a Scrum Master, I don't dictate the teams. But again, I always keep reminding them about the best practices. So question might be again, I know during my discussion I already talked about it. Let's take a look over here. So estimating in the story point instead of hours is effective actually, because you guys might lost so far. Why are these guys only talking about story points and not emphasizing on our hours only, right? Because research has shown that humans are better at estimating the sizing. Like conceptually, if they look on somehow visually, they can size easily. You guys can say that, okay, this ball is bigger than this bat, right? This ball, right? Why? Because look at it, its size. It's apparently anyone can say that because we are human being, right? The humans are much better at estimating size, especially relative size, when you compare some items. Then they are estimating the time. So estimating time is really kind of challenging, especially in the beginning, versus if you estimate in terms of sizing. So let me admit the student again one more. There you go. Okay, so let's take a look. Remember, I was giving example why story points, not hours, right? So consider the following activities as an example. Manually counting the laces on an American football. So if you count on American football, the laces, if you manually count them, and then manually count the stitches on a baseball over here. Look at this, these stitches on this baseball, right? And then manually counting the bumps on a baseball. Okay, so this is baseball. You manually count the bumps. Remember, baseball is not flat or like. I hope you guys understood. Look at those variations, right? So although this quite size bigger in size, but it's not complex. This one is smaller in size. This ball, like which is kind of baseball, right? But look at the stitches that you have to manually count. It's complex. It's more tedious. Like effort is more, but the size is small. What if you had to estimate exactly how long each would take to count? And how accurate do you think your estimate would be? It could be wrong, or it could be because you only talking about the time itself only. We are not considering the complexity, how complex it is, right? Or when how unknown it could be. What if you miss some of those or something? Those are kind of risks or variations. Alternatively, how easily would it be to estimate which activity is the biggest and the smallest relative to each other? Like how confident are you that you would be correct? So now you got this comparison, like, it could be straightforward visually, but it could be complex when you get to the actual, estimate or actual achieving that goal. The goal is to count the number of stitches on a ball. One of the American football, and the other one is baseball. I'm just skipping the third one. So I hope that makes sense to you guys now. Any questions on this point so far? Okay. All right, I believe there's another analogy and comparison that continuation of the previous slide, why story points are important. And now we are getting to our actually fun part, which is kind of Fibonacci series. And also we're going to play some pointing poker online as well. So if you ask two developers to estimate the same story, right? So developer A, developer B, you will get two different answers because remember, everyone's thinking perspective is different, right? While some of the difference might be explained by gaps in the specification or understanding, it could be requirement gaps or something, right? But the fact is that the developer have different knowledge and experience, right? Skill set is different, their perspective is different. So it will take more or less time to do the same work. So for the amount of work that you give, same type of work. If one developer could take 2 days, the other developer could take a week or 5 days. Why? Because everyone's skill set is different, everyone's perspective, approach is different. Now ask those same two developers to rate the amount of effort required to complete one story relative to another one. Remember, you guys did one story in the past. Now provide an estimate to the similar type relative. Relative is very important. Same type of story, like similar effort. Not 100%, but it could be here and there a little bit different, but relative to another story. And then they will likely to end up with consensus in terms of So we use the Fibonacci sequence, which is kind of 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. You know a Fibonacci sequence? Like if you add up the previous one, you get to the next one. 1 plus 2 makes 3, and then 2 plus 3 makes 5. That's how it works. 5 plus 3 makes the 8. So you count them predecessor, and then you get to the next one. So it's the relative effort that matters. Look at over here. So gradually it goes up. Elephant is bigger among those. If you line those animals in a different random order, and if you provide the estimates in the sequence, that's how you will end up. So size, and then over here the estimation. So estimation goes bigger as size grows gradually. And then our estimation approach, our recommended, I would say actually. So as a Scrum Master or Agile coach, why this Fibonacci sequence or series is very famous. Um, there are a couple of ways. It's not something that it is the only one that you have to follow, or that's why Scrum Guide does not have these guidelines. They give you freedom. Scrum Guide give you freedom, no matter how you guys want to do that, but you have to stick with the Scrum principles. That's the goal. So that's why some teams, you guys might be thinking, other than Fibonacci series, what are the other techniques for the estimates? There are some T-shirt sizing as well, like extra large, extra small, small, um, medium, large, and then extra large, blah blah blah. So that's how it goes as well. Some of the teams they do team shirt sizing as well, especially they do for epics actually, because epics can be broken down to that level, but the stories have lots of variations over here. As you can see in Fibonacci series, start with the smallest story that the team understand completely and is between 1 to 3 story points. For example, if this story that is brought up to the team's attention in during refinement call, right? That's where we do backlog refinement and backlog grooming calls. We do this. This is our second phase. Our next, second stage of the grooming call. First, when we will get to the actual discussion of the backlog grooming, I know we already talked enough in details, but one of the practices that backlog grooming has two phases. One, pull the story, bring it to the team, talk about it. That's where a product owner or business analyst brings up those, and then they ask the team to provide the estimate. That's where the second phase starts. So start with the smallest story that the team is comfortable, easy to understand, and then start grooming that. That could be only between 1 to 3 story points. Select another story that quantify how much more or less the complexity or unknown effort is than the previous story. So relative, remember, compare them. Okay, now we have done knocked down like two stories which were simple, 2 points. Now let's take a look on the bigger story that could be more challenging or complexity. So if it's big, if it has more complexity or unknown, which is again, you don't make the call, you just bring awareness for to the team. Let them decide, and then assign a user story point value. Those are again practices. Continue the process ranking items relative to one another. For example, take a look over here. 1 hour, story point. Start with always Fibonacci sequence always starts with 1, 1, 2, 3, and then going upper side like 5, 8, 13, 20, 50. The our agile coaches always recommend the maximum size that can be tagged with the user story is 13. Even some of the agile they say 8, even they don't go even 13 as well. Question could be in your mind as a user, actually simple student, that where how do you determine that this story, I mean 8 or 13 is the max and cannot be more than 13 in Fibonacci sequence. The goal is, how many days do you have? If you are running 2 weeks of sprint, how many actual days do we have? 10, right? 2 weeks.
10 days.
10
10.
days, correct. So when we if we estimate a story in a way is that like considering those three factors for complexity, unknown, and effort. uh, so if you commit a story or estimate a story higher than 13, which is kind of 20 is the next, how you guys can plan your work in terms of like days, because you only have 10 days, right? So there are some practices that I will share with you in the last class that I have actually set aside for you guys to share all those best practices. Even if it comes in our discussion, I'll keep discussing, I'll keep bringing it up and sharing with you guys, because knowledge sharing is caring, I believe. So I always learn new things when I run a new class or training or something like that. For example, so the topic was how you determine, right? That this story or why we put a stop on for on 13 or 8 max for user story sizing. Because remember, smallest and fastest, those two keywords that you have to keep in mind, right? So what if we estimate if we commit a story which is really like more than 13, which is 20, and then we not end up delivering it, right? Because the sprint days was only 10 days, 2 weeks, right, duration, and we were only again, story, you are not the only, don't be selfish. If you're a developer, don't consider that it has only development piece. Remember that it has testing piece as well, right? Remember the tasks bullet point that I was showing to you guys. So you have to, when you provide the estimate, you don't provide estimate only considering your work. Oh, from the development style, I think it's only like two story points. It's easy development. Okay, it could be easy development, but testing could be complex. So from the tester might be saying, oh, I disagree. I disagree. It is 5 points because it has more scenarios, use cases. It has like multiple impacts on the other features of the system that we have to regression testing or blah blah blah, all those things. Then there you go. Or like bring up on the table and talk about and agree a story point as a team, not individual basis. Don't ever go one person influencing all this sizing. Okay, so the team size. So next question could be who will provide the estimates. It's the team. And when we say team, whoever is working on that, whoever will be working, or the development team, actually, no matter if they're working or not. Yes, when it comes to capacity, those are the discussion comes up handy that, okay, let's hear from them as well. So that's why refinement actually keeps going on. Anyway, so coming to your point, I mean, to the question where we were starting that, okay, why we put the cap on 13 or 8? Actually, I don't go beyond 8 as well. So, but my agile coach used to say that if there is one resource, one developer, again, keep that in mind. Okay. For example, if you have team members of 7, right, which is ideal, 7 plus minus 2. 7, when we say plus minus 2 means it could be no 9 or it could be 5. But again, I'm not going to go into that discussion, team size, but I'm talking about the story points. So when we say like if we say 13, if the story has 13 points, that means one individual, like one team member, fully allocated, like maxed with one user story, which is 13 points. Don't give any other story to that particular individual. Why? Because that's how, if you adapt this, only this way you can deliver that story. If you assign multiple story to that individual, definitely it's a failure. They will not be able to deliver. Again, the point is delivery. It's not something you start working on it and then you carry over to the next sprint. Then what's the purpose? You lost the points, right? You did not deliver your commitments. You have to keep that in mind, that delivery is very important. Okay, so that's why we always go with the smallest first, which is called low hanging fruit. Deliver them faster in few hours, just hand it over to the tester and then move on, pick another one, right? So that's how we go, like smallest and fastest, like those software deliverables that you commit during a particular sprint. Any questions on this? I'm not tracking the chat for any questions, but again, feel free to put on idea boards. But moving on to the next one. Size the following according to their masses. Okay, here we go. Um, let me put there we go. Where's my pointing session? I'm sharing this pointing poker into the chat. Can you guys join me in that session? We're gonna size a story and make it more fun way. Can you guys join? Hold on. Oh, sorry about that. This is the website actually. I use it for the anonymous voting. So let me start the session. Let me put my name. When you start a session, I always put my name. Join the session. And here's my session. I'm gonna put this one. Use this link to join my session for the estimation. And try to put your name so I can identify who have joined. So remember, there are different techniques to run those estimations. I see Sana have joined so far. Thank you. Anyone else? Looks like Sana is only awake. Right, active. Asen, thank you. Okay, good. So you see this option, right? 0, half point. We don't use them. We use Fibonacci sequence. Remember 1.2, 3, 5, and 8, 13 the max, right? So remember, this is where you do anonymous voting. For example, what if one team members keep calling, oh, it's 13? Then all the team members will start agreeing with that. That's how you actually facilitate the estimation piece by running the like anonymous voting. So let's take a look on the slide where we were before to size our what. Here we go. So can you guys take a look? Horse, giraffe, chicken, alligator, cat, and gorilla. Okay, size the following according to their mass. Okay, keep that in mind. According to their masses, horse, in terms of Fibonacci sequence, what's like what number or size it could be horse compared to giraffe or chicken or alligator, cat or gorilla. So anyone can like first provide the estimate for horse in according to their mass, according to the heaviness. Take a look.
We can start from the least one, so the chicken will be the least one, and
Okay.
then cat like that.
All right, that's good. I like it. So you wanna estimate cat or
And
chicken
horse
first?
will be on number 3, I think.
Okay. So you wanna start with the chicken or cat?
I think chicken.
You think chicken? Okay. Everyone agreement? I know you have start few students have joined. As an well, okay, good. Thank you. So how much chicken could be?
3 points.
Again, shoot. We are doing anonymous voting. You have to click on this 2 point and submit your vote. See, this side have voted right 2 points. So click on this. Don't influence. Again, the goal is not to influence. Otherwise, remember, from a psychological perspective, team members will start agreeing. That's why even I don't show the my screen as well when I facilitate. It defeats the purpose. So right here, most of the team members came up with 2. So we always talk about lowest and then highest. I mean, not first. Again, let me take it back. But take a look over here. After everyone is done, you see the voting and then show votes. And then you click on that and it will show up right here. Since I am facilitating, so that's why it's showing for me. But again, that's how you facilitate, especially it's a great tool for the distributed teams members. Remember, distributed teams, they are not co-located. They are not sitting in one room. There's another technique we are getting to the point, which is called planning poker, which is quite famous as well. But again, just showing you to make it more interactive, this session is how you story points. So 3 team members came up with, okay, another one joined, which is 3. Okay. Again, right here, now we have almost get to the tie. Over here, as you can see, average is 2.4, but we don't go on the average, but there were some 3 votes for 2 points and 2 votes for the 3 points. So that's how I start my conversation. Okay, we receive 3 votes for the 2. Let's talk about because they are majority. Why is it 2? Okay, and then one of the team member or two, they talk about from the, remember, effort, complexity, and unknown, like those type of factors. But over here we are considering masses, right? Since the chicken is small and light as compared to other animals that are listed, so that's why I gave it two. Fine, this is really simple explanation of why I voted it for two. But as a Scrum Master, I'm not part of that estimation. Why? Because I don't work on the story point. I facilitate it. Okay, I know I did it over here, but just to show you guys a kind of quick demo, right? But that's how you start your conversation. They may be asking you, hey, why are you not voting? Okay, set the expectations. Even product owners, they don't do the estimation as well because they're not the developers or testers or whoever will be working on the stories, which is our core development team. Okay, that is when I talk about two, let's talk about three. Iqbal or Ahmed, would you mind saying why is it three in your point? Any one of those?
I included te- yeah, I included chicken testing or tasting.
Okay, good. All right. Again, don't be shy. Feel free to share your input. Why is it different than the other one? And then they will respect your opinion. So, would you mind sticking with two, or are you sticking with three? If there is a invite the team members to talk about lowest and highest, and then try to bring them on the same page to get an agreement. For example, try to get them higher because you are planning it, you are providing the estimates, right? So it doesn't have to be with majority, or majority might be agreeing with, oh yeah, I heard Iqbal saying that they also consider testing, or any other, like chicken might be heavier, some chicken might be smaller, so that's why they did three. Okay, I'll go with three. With that, is everyone okay with that? Does anyone have any concerns? if if the team keeps saying that, okay, if you see the differences, do another vote, another round of vote. But I try my best to bring them on the first shot, because the more you spend time, you'll get caught up into the little less, very less stories to be groomed or refined. So, try to bring them on the table or ask them, okay, I heard there's this discussion going on. Can we revoting? Can we do revote considering those discussions that have been talked so far, right? That may change the scenario and flip it, even three, or three team members with three, or and then even two with two. So again, the idea is that's where your facilitation skills comes up. You have to bring that on the same agreement with a little less conflicts, or with a little less uncomfortable or concerns. Again, I rarely do multiple votings or second attempt, but the recommendation is to do only two times, not go beyond third attempt of the same story. Over here it says description, so you can say estimating chicken, for example. Something like what I do is I copy from the Excel sheet whatever we are storing talk about. I put the title, so they know that what they're providing the estimate for. Again, this is only one story that we have talked so far and we have estimated. And you will find it very useful tool in terms of anonymous voting. Anonymous, when you say anonymous, means no influences. No, you're not showing your number first or saying loud, because let them remember cross-functional and self-manage. Let them think about it from themselves, not agreeing with someone. Remember, we heard, oh, it's three. And then you will definitely be a human being, actually. You will start people agreeing with that. Oh, yeah, if he says three, I will go with three. Then I will go with three. Okay, I will go with three. Then you are narrowing down their thinking. Actually, they'll stop thinking out of the box, or it will close the door of their thinking. So I hope it makes sense, and it's really great tool that you guys can be more beneficial. Once the story sizing is done and they agree, put that three in the system in Excel sheet or Jira or wherever you use, and clear the voting. You see this clear vote? It's clear. And now this session is also initiated as well, and you can copy another voting, which is another one. Could be, let's say, where is my other? Here we go, right here. So, same way you can estimate horse, giraffe, or cat, gorilla. This will be your homework, and I will send it in an email as well. And I will appreciate if you guys come back with your estimates. And this will be at least give me a kind of confidence as well that you guys are interested and you guys try to consume those contents and came back with your estimates accordingly. Because otherwise, if we keep doing it, it will be 1 hour spent over here as it is. But you saw this tool, like pointing poker is one of the great tool to do the estimates for the distributed teams. Remember, you guys are sitting somewhere in your rooms, in your houses, right? But we are providing the estimates. The next question is what if the teams are co-located? What techniques do you use? Then we use it's called planning poker, which is kind of coming to the next slides. I don't know. Yeah, it's right here actually. So select, explain, question, answer, vote, agree, and stop. If not agree, not yet, then vote again. Question and answer. This is actually a pointing poker flow. Planning poker. Planning poker. It's especially ideal for the co-located teams. But I'm sure you guys might have seen. Are you able to see my camera? I know it's the background. I have to turn off my background otherwise. But you see this 1, 2, 3. These deck cards. Are you able to see somehow? Are blurred? They might be a little bit blurred.
They're very
Are you?
down actually.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so let me take a look on the output. Here we go. There you go. So you see this?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah.
All right. See, distribute those each deck of cards to the team members. Okay. Give them like up to 8 point or something, whatever you want, wherever you want to go. Give it to them. And I know my kids were playing Uno. I picked them. I borrowed from them because it has the same points. I mean the numbers. Again, give them one deck each to them so they can keep it ready. When you talk about this a particular story, remember when we were talking about the horses or animals, all those things. But let's take a look on this cycle. Select means pull a story, explain it. Okay, bring it on the table, share your screen. Okay, this is the story that we're talking about it. It could be this story, right? That horse or giraffe, whatever. Explain it that okay, this is feature is logging the screens using password, right? So explain it, answer any question and answers, because developers might be might have whole laundry list of questions for you. Okay, do you want us to finish up like this story, or it can be broken down, or it could be challenging because this skill set does not have in our team members. For example, if you are working on .NET, right? If you don't have .NET developer, then it's a training issue, right? You need to borrow another resource or skill set issue that is that familiar with the .NET technology. I'm giving example. Question and answer, right? Testers might be asking from their testing scenarios, right? Okay, does it have impact or effective, or it will update any other system or not? Do I have to do the whole regression testing, or any smoke testing will be enough? Those type of questions, that's where team feels confidence and more comfortable in voting, in estimating. Do the voting. When we say voting, this is the technique of voting that you call out for the um, in-person meeting call, co-located teams. Distribute this deck of cards to each team member. Okay, and then when you say, "Are you guys ready?" When you say ready, remember, I open my pointing poker if I'm dealing with distributed teams. I share the session with them in the chat just like I did with you guys. Or if they're using pointing poker, okay, keep your deck cards ready. For example, if I'm developer, I'm audible. Let me take a look. I'm looking right here. Okay, so everyone is hiding their cards because they are talking about it. They are answering the questions, and then when it comes to the voting, then say, okay, everyone is ready, and because everyone's questions is answered, they say, oh yes, we are ready to vote. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and then that's where you show your card right here. because, for example, if they show the card right in the beginning of the story, then you are defeating the purpose of anonymous voting. Voting means, like, don't influence it, don't share your numbers unless if you are called out. Then when you say 3, 2, 1, all the team members share the and show their cards right away, at the same time, actually, right? This way, you guys, you can be really good in terms of like getting the more out of the voting, in terms of, like, benefits of the anonymous voting without any influences, without any, like, for example, if I'm not taking much interest in the voting or in the grooming session, right, in the story, how can I better vote it? I will see the number and then I will pick that card, right, randomly. No, you have to consume it because you might be the one person might be working on that particular story, right? So that's why engagement is very important, collaboration is important, and we encourage anonymous voting for the team members. So I share two techniques, like one with for the co-located team, or if you are even co-located or distributed, they might be even on the videos and holding those cards and showing right away, and they might not be using a pointing poker because they are not aware of it, right? But you go ahead and share with them and give them kind of this quick demo of this tool, that, okay, why not try this tool? This helps a lot in terms of, like, when it comes to voting. Or if they are co-located and your agile coach is stressing and emphasizing on using only planning poker, go for it. But that's how the technique. You need multiple deck of cards for each team members. You distribute with them and then call out, ask them, are we ready to size this story? Yeah, okay, then show me your cards, and then start. And then you have to manually actually, you have to manually calculate. Okay, Ms. Shahed came up three, blah, blah. You have to write down on the board or something. So it's kind of a little bit manual, tedious, using planning poker. But again, it works for the team because it's easier to calculate how many words you have to calculate, like 7, right? Or the most, whichever is the development team is compromised of. So I hope these two techniques make sense to you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this planning poker session as well. But keep using it and keep playing with that, and come back with any of the questions. Any questions on idea boards or anywhere else? I know I have not looked at idea boards. Okay, we'll address it at the end of the class. I'm glad to see some of the questions out there. Can we go on quick break because we already more than an hour above? Uh, so maybe 5 minutes is enough this time, or 10
Okay.
minutes. So let me make an announcement in the chat as well.
10 minutes,
Okay,
Shahid bhai.
10 minutes, okay, 27, okay. So we'll be
Thank
back on 7:27. Okay. All right. See you guys soon. Okay, we're back. Can I get some thumbs up or unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm back.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So we're gonna quickly go over a couple of slides and then we'll play a quick good video to understand it much better, the planning poker. And then we will jump to the capacity planning. These are the two things that you really have to be good at it. So I hope everyone is back from the break. Excuse me, sorry about that. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, let me go to the presentation mode. There we go. So we were here talking about the planning poker. This slide also talks about, I know I covered already about the techniques, planning poker in terms of calling out the numbers. Now imagine that each team member is given a planning poker card, right? So, you always give everyone a whole deck actually, because, they may not be picking only one card or two. So give them at least four, 1, 2, 3, 5, up to 8 or 13, 5 cards each team member. And then if it's distributor team, you can use pointing poker or you can use any internet-based virtual team cards as well for the internet. So if you have any virtual numbers or something, somehow virtual tool. But for me, pointing poker is really best. It works very well. So next slide is talking about estimation, techniques. Remember, we talked about it. No one speaks out first, because instead each team members presents a card. They pick up the card and they show that, okay, to me, this story is 8-pointer. or this is a 5-pointer story or something like that. Turn over the card, right? Instead, each team member presents a card face down with their estimates. Turn over the card when it's called out. Discuss outliners to collaborate understanding. Remember, one is calling 3 over here, as you see in the picture. Some of team members are carrying 3, some are 8, 20, 13, and then bring them on the table, question answer, right? Talk about it, re-vote if necessary. Remember I mentioned, if necessary, try your best to talk higher first, I mean the lower, and then if you're estimating another story, talk the lower first and then higher. That's how the team feels that, oh wow, this is a good estimation technique, because you don't go always go, oh, okay, let's talk about always set the expectations to talk about the higher first, highest ones first. No, I mean, do the trade-off. Okay, previous story we talked about the highest first and the lower later, and now we talk about lowest first. Okay, and then there could be some middle ones that may be feeling that, okay, we are not given the opportunity to speak up or anything, right? So again, those are your facilitation skills, that how you want to facilitate, and also keeping that time box in mind as well, right? So let me admit the folks. There's one person waiting. We were talking about the estimation using planning poker, not pointing. There are two things: planning poker, pointing poker, poker. Anyway, so yeah, you have to set the expectations, set the rules of the games, and then start voting. But the techniques that you have to be really careful about is like do and don'ts. Do estimate as team by providing all the estimates at the same time. Remember, no influential anything. That's why we encourage anonymous voting. This helps eliminate bias and influence of other votes. Estimate the effort and complexity of the entire story, coding and testing. Like, don't consider only coding in mind, or don't keep only testing in mind. Discuss the differences in vote. Remember, those are like facilitation tips. Um, Discuss the differences in votes to develop a shared understanding of the effort and complexity. For example, a developer might be thinking, should be thinking from being in the testing shoes, and tester should be thinking from the development perspective as well. That's where they talk to each other. Identify and use reference stories, referral. Hey, we worked on this story, this similar type of relative remember story. In the previous sprints that was 5 points, but we ended up only 3 points. So do you guys think that it could be only 3 as well this time? Because since we have already worked on similar type of story. Remember relative sizing. Backlog items with which the item is team is similar, is familiar to relatively sizing again. Size, estimates, both are same words. Estimate stories during backlog refinement. Yes, question might be where or at which point we estimate the stories. We estimate the stories during the backlog refinement sessions. There are some situations and scenarios I see even recently in my current job as well, where the team changes their estimates at the sprint planning day, because they did some research or they did some work after the backlog refinement. Uh, One of the developer did some research or analysis. Now they lower down, and then we changed it actually. But once the sprint is executed, once the sprint is started, we don't touch the story points at all. Don't do that, please. If your team is changing the story points while the sprint is already in progress, it's really bad anti-pattern. It's really bad behavior, bad practice to do that, because team has to learn gradually. This estimation, team cannot be get mature in one day or after one sprint or two sprint. I see even teams struggling after 6 months, like even so many after sprints. Why? It depends on the project, depending on their dynamics, the work. So there's so many factors that comes. But again, coaching is always there. So that's where Scrum Master should exhibit some coaching skills as well, to how to like teach them how to. Teaching is one of the technique of the coaching, right? So give them kind of examples, or be flexible as well. Don't dictate them. Rather, tell the good story that they can understand. Okay. Next one is don'ts, which is kind of, don't follow these practices. Don't use a story point or velocity to compare the teams. Yes, that's very important actually. um, for example, teams might feel demotivated because they are not delivering 100%, right, of the sprint commitments, and then they're comparing themselves with the other team. Oh, we see other teams are doing great, really great, and ours we are still struggling, and we're not committing. Delivering 100%. Don't compare your team with others. Never ever, please. And same thing in velocity as well. Velocity is total points that you deliver within a sprint. Don't compare it. It's not recommended. Average the team's story points to size a story. Don't do averages. Like for example, our average story point is 5. Every time team members, for example, some of the stories they size 8, some of the stories they size 3, average is 5, and then okay, let's do 5, put 5 points on each story without looking at the story itself. Don't do that, okay? Because each story is different. Argue against someone's sizing. Please don't do that. You always let them learn. If they are even making mistake, and you know that, don't just bring awareness, but don't dictate them or argue with them. For me, it's 3 points, but I can go with 5 if the team is okay. If they have others have size 5. But then the next sprint, similar type of story if brought up, and then the discussion comes up. Remember, oh, we talked about it, and you were right. We ended up 3 points, not 5. So let's do 3. You're the winner. Okay, it's win-win situation. But don't argue with them. Okay, instead have a discussion about why everyone voted the way they did. Okay. So the next one is size coding and testing efforts separately. Yes, that other big anti-pattern. Some of the developers, they only think from development standpoint. That's why they size it. And the tester, same thing, they do from the testing standpoint, or separately. For example, this story is development is 5 and testing is only 1, so we'll go with 5. Don't do that, because come up with a holistic approach and all inclusive and get an agreement, and maybe every 3, right? So things like that. Again, it's your part to give them options on the table, not dictate them or go with them. Have the team share their estimation one at a time, one story at a time. This leads to influencing other team members and less discussion. For example, they may, okay, I will come back to you, Radhabai, in a minute. So team might be sharing the estimations with other teams, and oh, we are estimating like this, and we have velocity up to this point. Don't do that, because again, each comparing is not encouraged as well. Same thing over here. This leads to influencing other teams members and less discussion. Um, that's why we do anonymous voting. Size during sprint planning. Yeah, remember I shared you one of the example. They do some of the stories point sizing during the sprint planning as well. But exceptional basis, it's fine. 1 or 2 story points. The story that they bring up, but don't make it a habit. Otherwise, you are turning your sprint planning into what? Which ceremony? Anyone? If we do sizing during sprint planning, what are we doing? We are turning our sprint planning into what? Which event?
Sprint planning.
No, no. They said don't size during the sprint planning, right? Correct? If we do, then we are defeating the purpose of sprint planning. We are turning our sprint planning into another meeting, which is
Grooming.
called, there you go, grooming. Good. You got extra points. Because we do size during the grooming, our refinement session. That's what we earlier, remember we were doing when we were saying do. Estimate stories during backlog refinement or backlog grooming. Look at the last bullet, right? So if you keep this habit of sizing most of the stories into the sprint planning day, then what's the purpose of grooming then, right? So, okay. All right. So activity estimation, like, estimate those houses, how you estimate. So relative sizing, remember, like, keep that in mind. This is smaller, this is kind of coop, rather this big mansion, and then all those comparison, and you guys can estimate it. You guys are smarter than me. So now we have estimated what's next, right? So that's where our estimation, our output of the refinement sessions, are our input to our sprint planning, because our backlog, once our backlog is prioritized and sized or estimated, right, then you can start working on it, right? Otherwise, if you don't have estimates, how can you better plan or commit to a particular work, right? Remember, the measurement unit of measurement is very important. You have to somehow measure, right? You need a technique to reduce sprint planning time. Do a really good job of backlog refinement on an ongoing basis. Remember, I told you it's not like a never-ending process. It's don't put a stop on the backlog refinement. That's where you size the stories, you groom them, you put much details out there. So, in other words, having said that, once you have provided estimates and size your stories, yes, definitely you can go into the sprint planning where your sprint starts, right? The next interesting topic is capacity planning, because you don't only consider the what you call it, user story points, right? When you commit a work, when you say commit, I will do that. I will do that. When you say we will do that, we will deliver this amount of work as a team. How you say that? First, looking at the story points, right? How many story points we are committing, or like, right? The other one is the capacity. Do you guys have enough capacity to support that, to deliver that work, right? What if you guys have only less capacity in terms of, like, less availability of the team members, because some of the team members went on wedding, some of the team members got emergency, their vacations, they're not available, and without looking at the story points, then you go ahead and blindly do the sprint planning over here. So sorry, my kids were picking up the Uno they want to play. um, so story points are not enough, right? Those are one ingredient of your planning. The other is you have to consider is capacity as well. When you say capacity, as I mentioned, right? If you guys don't have availability of the team members, right? That's where the story points will do nothing, because story points are story points. What if you don't have, remember the trio from the first class: people, process, technology, right? People, process is there to support you. Scrum is there. Story points are out there. What if you don't have people or resources, right? There you go. That's where the capacity comes up in the picture. So capacity planning is to estimate the Scrum team's capacity for the work which can be accomplished in the next sprint. So story points are good. We size the stories, our backlog is beautiful, groomed, okay. But our team members is not there, or enough resources, right? They cannot handle that much work that product owner is asking for that particular sprint, right? So you have to do, as a Scrum Master, you need to be good at sprint capacity planning in order to come up with your numbers. That, okay, how many story points you can handle, or how far we can go, and learn. Anyway, coming to the point, capacity planning is to estimate the sprint Scrum team's capacity for the work which can be accomplished in the next sprint. It provides a clear picture of how much work the team can handle or can do without stressing out or reducing quality and efficiency. Yes, quality, don't compromise on the quality or efficiency. You have to deliver the faster, but the quality software, right? Increment, like as part of your output of your iteration, which is called sprint, iteration, same thing, right? So These are very capacity. That's how why now you see the importance of capacity, right? If you don't do if you do poor capacity planning, you will definitely end up compromising on poor quality, like reducing the quality, or because what will they will do? The folks will go rush. They will not do diligent on their like development or testing, and then they will move on and stressing up. Oh, we have to finish it up because we committed so much work, right? And we don't have the full help resources to support those work, right? To deliver it. What they will do, they will go quickly, faster, and passing without getting into the more details or finding any bugs. Generally, there are two ways of sprint planning: um, velocity-based sprint planning and capacity-based sprint planning. When you say velocity, I will show you some velocity charts in the next session when we'll do our Jira training from next class. Um, that's where those are the metrics. One of the metrics where is like every sprint, how much you delivered, like planned and then committed. For example, you might have planned 50 points total, right? Like 10 or 12 story points total 50, but you delivered only might be 35 or 36 the most, which could be 8 stories or 7, right? Depending on the how they were sized. That's where your velocity is 35 points, which you delivered it. Okay, it will be showing you the that you what you planned, which is kind of part of sprint report actually in Jira. But velocity is what your throughput, what you delivered, okay, in particular sprint, and it is based on the actual story points. Actual, remember, completed, not committed. Committed is when you start the sprint, when you commit. But what if you commit, but ended up actual completion of less, right? So that's where the velocity is your actual completion of the story points that you did in the previous one, not in the current one. Current one you have just started, right? So you look at the previous ones based on the velocity, you come up with your planning that you do the average velocity. For example, in one sprint, you delivered like 40 points. The other sprint, it was good. It went up, up to 55 points. But it's not always the case, right? You do the average and calculate and come up with somehow your like average velocity that your team is delivering. It will give you a kind of rough idea and kind of starting point where you can commit and start your sprint. The other recommended approach is capacity-based planning, which is really great actually in terms of like looking at the people resources available. It is based on the team's estimated future availability for the next sprint. For example, team members might have some planned time off, right? They're not robots, they're human beings. So based on their availability, it will be reduced, right? Not increased. You have to commit less because the people are not available, right? The team members are not available. So that's where you have to, based on the team's estimated future availability, that's where you ask them that, okay, do you have any planned time off? How many days you will be off, or weeks, whatever, right? Depending on that, that's where you plan. It's called capacity-based planning. Well, I will show you some metrics. Sorry, the Excel sheet in a minute. Maybe it's coming in the next slides, whatever. Velocity helps. Okay, you guys might be thinking if one way or the other, why we have to go with the velocity, or they're just giving you kind of differences actually. What is the advantage of each approach? Velocity helps to determine the number of products backlog items which can be taken up for the next sprint. And while capacity helps in understanding the team's availability, right, to complete those backlog items. Both velocity and like capacity have their own importance in sprint planning. In fact, actually, some of Scrum Master, even some team, even myself, I do both. I consider that before kicking off the sprint, before starting the sprint, I look at the average velocity as well as I do the capacity as well. Capacity is very important. Of course, I support it. But what if the team is taking less and they have bandwidth? The people don't have much plan time off, but based on their discussion in the sprint planning, they're taking less than average. Then as a Scrum Master, it's your part, right? It's your duty, it's your responsibility to bring awareness, right? Hey, look at our velocity. Here's our average, which we are delivering 35 points, but we are committing 28 points. We still have some bandwidth or cushion of 7 points to adjust. Then they say, oh, we might face some production defects or something. There must be some story that you can elaborate, or if your leadership asks later, right, you should be ready for that as well. Or they can bring more stories in the middle of the sprint to deliver. So I always bring awareness on both on these sides. Okay, moving on to the next. Or I had Raza Vice hands. Do you have any question, or you want to put it on the idea boards?
Yeah, Shad, I already put it
Okay.
on idea boards actually.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. That's in a
Yes, sir.
minute. So
Yeah, thank you.
how to do the capacity planning? How we do that? So I will quickly go over on these two slides because we are getting to the like ending of the, but we have to address some questions as well. But again, these are very important. I really want you guys to be good at it actually and consume it. And this is really good topic. This will make you a great Scrum Master. So most of the Scrum Master I see struggling on doing capacity planning properly. And if you consider those factors, I guarantee you guys, you will be really doing a great job in Scrum Master, especially when it comes to the capacity planning. You can do the capacity planning in Excel or use any project management tool, whatever you are doing. If you are organization or company having do some run those calculations, kindly consider the following factors while for the planning. Factor one, duration of the sprint. How long is your sprint? Is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Right? You have to put the numbers on that Excel sheet or whichever tool you are using. For calculating the duration of the sprint, please identify the start date and end day of the sprint. For example, if it's 2 weeks, right, and then it's 10 days, working days, as you can see. Duration of the sprint is 10 days. In this case, for 3 week sprint, duration will be 15 days. Factor two, team availability and percentage allocation. There could be some team members that are not 100% allocated to your team. They might be they might be shared resources, right? And 50% working with you guys, 50% might be working with other teams, and it's always the case. Actually, this is reality, especially with the contractors. Uh, Organizations, companies want to fully utilize them, right? The contractors, their time, because they're high billable. They assign multiple teams to them. So teams availability and percentage allocation. Are they 100% allocated or less? List down names of all team members along with their roles, and there are other columns for percentage allocation. For example, one could be 75% for the team A and 25% for the team B. I'll show you in a minute. Factor three, standard working hours, which is kind of, although standard working hours are 8 hours, we count them, but do you guys think that they really spend all 8 hours fully focused? No, because team organization's policy might be work policy might be 9 hours, because 1 hour lunchtime and 8 hours working hours, right? During that 8 hours, there could be some meetings. They might not be actually working, they have to attend it, right? There could be some coffee breaks or restroom breaks, all those things, right? We are not robots, we are human beings. So in order to say, you say that 8 hours, but in reality, you end up spending less than 8 hours on actual work. And I will show you in a minute. The next one is factor four, holiday and planned leave or time off, right? Work-life balance. So holidays, you have to consider that as well. You cannot ignore holidays because, I mean, holidays are holidays. And also people can go on vacation or picnic or anything, right? They need some more time to relax. You have to minus those, subtract those as well, right? And then factor five is Scrum ceremonies time or other meetings, one-on-ones or town halls, any other activities. Please consider the time which goes in Scrum ceremonies. Remember, if they're doing sprint planning, they're not actually working on development, right? Or tester is not testing anything, right? So you have to subtract that as well. For example, daily Scrum time, sprint planning, sprint reviews, demos, all those, you have to minus that when you are doing your numbers. Factor six, Focus factor. Factors is the team's ability to remain focused on the sprint goals without any impediments or distractions. For example, someone might be on my desk and start discussion which goes long and long, and like we spend hours, right? And then oh my God, I could not get enough time to finish what I had planned because that individual was standing on my and table and talking about like so much crappy things, right? So it doesn't make sense. We can get the real capacity when we multiply total available capacity with focus factor. The focus factor is usually in the range of 60 to 80%. Okay, here we go. Cool slide. I elaborated all these over here as an example. Actually, for effective capacity planning, please consider all the activities where the team is expected to spend time during the sprint event, if not listed in the sample. Again, this is as an example. In this sample, there are 4 developers over here and the 3 QAs, okay, in the team, and other inputs for the planning are as below. Public holiday on day 4. Day 4 is a public holiday. It could be Christmas or anything. Therefore, 0 hours. Look at this G4 column. We put zeros right here. So they're all 100% allocated. Only the uh, third tester Ankit is 50% allocated with the team. So we reduce what? 4 hours, right? Standard working days over here in this column. As you can see, look at my pointer. So others are 100%, so we put 8 hours. Standard, again standard. Now, Gagan will be on leave on day 6 of the sprint. So look at the day 6 and look at Gagan right here on developer 4. Put 0 out here. Okay. 0 hour for her, right? Sorry, where we were at Gagan. Where's my Gagan? Okay, right here. Therefore, 0 hours for him. I skipped Asha actually. We'll be on leave on day 3, so we put 0. This is again really crystal clear example of doing great capacity planning. How you guys even put your formula and connect those as well. They can flip the numbers right away. Ankit's allocation 50%. He will be taking half time of day 8. So right here day 8 he will be taking half day, so 2 hours because he is only 50% allocated, therefore 2 hours. So this is again give you kind of paint a really clear picture of how you can better do a sprint capacity planning in a best way. So put the roles, members, their allocation, standard working hours. Next one is maximum possible capacity is working hours multiplied by number of sprint days, right? We have 2 weeks of sprint, which is 10, 8 working hours, standard one, 80 hours, right? Total. 100% is 80. That's how we are divided because over here, Asha is taking 2 days off. Oh, sorry, 1 day with 1 holiday, right? So I subtracted 16. That comes to 64 points, right? Sprint total. Let's take example of Asha for now to save some time. So right here, 64 hours instead of 80 because there is 1 holiday, right? On day 4, she also taking 1 day off on day 3. 16 are gone, 64 left. But she also, every team member has to attend sprint ceremonies and other meetings and activities, which are total in 2 weeks are 15.5 hours. Okay. So you have to subtract this one from 64 as well, which is end up 48.5. Okay. Available capacity considering ceremonies, other meetings, 48.5. Focus factor. So in this 48.5, they're not sitting on the desk every time, right? All 48 hours, 0.5. They're human beings. They go on coffee breaks. They go on quick breaks, restroom breaks, all those things. So focus factor, we allocated 80%. It could be even some of companies do even less, even 70%, because they know people get distracted, right? So what do we do? 48.5.8 is 38.5. That is your final capacity of this individual, 38.5 for that sprint. And that's how you run those numbers and you come up with, it's supposed to be 34.349, but with including focus factor, which is kind of, they consider 6 hours of 8 out of 8, or 5 even, some of the companies. That's why we put like 80%, 279 final capacity hours. So having said that, how you relate this to your capacity, right? These are the hours again, not the story points, right? So that's the next one is like over here. Actually, another detail level elaboration is over here as well. Is um, A over here is showing like a max possible capacity right here, maximum. B is over here is you are considering holiday and timely time off, right? And then you are after the taking off the ceremonies, you see this capacity after considering the ceremonies, and then D is your actual final capacity hours. Now, question comes up, and this one is another explanation of over here why we are coming up to 15.5, because your product owner or whoever is your manager, they might be asking, hey, how you came up with this 15.5 number? Okay. I mean, again, this is an example. Don't follow it. Don't do 15.5 for your team or at your actual like work, right? Why? Because this is as an example to bring awareness to you guys, and numbers could be different. It could be more or less, but consider all those factors. Sprint planning day one, right? And Scrum calls like 15 minutes, they're adding up right here, 2.5 hours. So refinement meeting, right? 60 minutes call 2 times a week, 2 hours right here. So these are all the type of things that you break it down and put your numbers, and you can be you can bring up really great capacity planning after this call, after running those numbers. Question comes up, how you relate it to the story points. That's a great question, and actually there are so many variations of this question. Is about um, one is ask your uh, like agile coaches or whoever is running the show overall in your organization, Scrum or Agile. It could be a project manager, it could be a director, or whoever is doing managing all those things. Ask them that, okay, here's my capacity. How can we better align with story points, right? The question is, like, there should be some standards actually based on the historical data. They come up with for example, they say that 8 story points per sprint per person, or 10 story points per person per sprint. That's what the average velocity or average they've been handling it. That's how you can divide those, and then you can come up with kind of average commitment. Again, there is no right or wrong answers. You are doing sprint planning for the first time, but there could be some show running be earlier, right? Or let's put a baseline. For example, if you might be asking, what if you are running sprint planning for the first time, right? Then get it documented. That okay, since we are doing for the first time, we don't have any historical data. We're gonna go with 8 point per person per sprint. That's it, or 13 points, whatever gets the agreement. Because some of the team members or some of the other teams, they might not be in agreement with 8 points. Oh, to us, the 8 points are less because we already estimated hires, right? Okay, how about 13? Get it to somehow start as a baseline, and then go from there. And then if once you start your journey, then you look back at data, and then you can be better change your numbers or average velocity and commitments. Does this make sense? Oh, okay, we're already 3 minutes over. Let me stop for a second. I'm gonna take a pause over here, and I play playing poker video. I will share with you later. Actually, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna address some of the questions. Does anyone have any questions already out there, or they might have been already answered? Let's take a look over here on the backlog in progress. I see, how does a tester take part in story points since they are not the one developing or coding? Does this already answered, or you guys need more details from me, or is already answered as part of our discussion so far?
I don't think it was answered.
Sounds
I don't
okay.
think it was answered,
Oh.
Shahid bhai, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, remember one of the bullet points that we talked about when we were discussing the estimation is they don't have to be selfish, the team members. They have to consider others as well. The developer thinks from the testing standpoint, or at least agree, and then tester consider or agrees from what development could be. Okay, and that's how do you set the expectations with them. Because again, remember I said that from the development it could be simple, it could be a few hours, but testing could be more, right? That's why they're rising those story points and coming up with the higher estimates. When they start talking about it, and then when they start those discussion, that's where the developers understand, oh yeah, you're right, because testing is more, because you have to do so much heavy regression testing or other components testing as well, right? So, but it's not only from the testing that are influencing, but it's a piece that have more effort. One of the layer, right? Development and coding and testing. So that's how tester part takes part in the story sizing. Not only the development, it's always a bag. Really, when remember when we were talking about do and don't, that was also captured as well. Don't uh, estimate the story only from coding side or only from testing side. No, bring them together, you know, and they should be agreed upon. Make sense?
Yes, Shahid, but that no, my question was like, how does a developer, oh, sorry, the tester know how much time to commit for that, because he's not the one developing it, right? So that was my question
Right.
actually. But you
Yeah.
answered it all. Yeah, since they're talking to each other
There
and
you go. That will be
yeah,
outcome of that discussion. When
correct.
they will
Yeah,
start
yeah,
talking. For example, the development, I'm a developer, I story point only size it 2, but you are a tester, you size it 5. Okay, there's differences, right? As a Scrum Master, I will bring both on the table. Okay, let's talk about it. Why is it 5? Why is it 2? And then they will discuss. Okay, development is easy because it's few hours. Testing, that's where how the tester comes up in the picture in sizing, and they talk about it. Okay, I looked at it. It's simple. Definitely, it's simple, but it has impact to other components that I have to test. So then they have to bump bump the numbers. Okay.
got it, sir. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna marking it as done. Here you go. The next one is about certification. Actually, I saw look at it. What are the suggested certifications which are easy to get for the beginners? This is remember I in order to keep this training on focus, I parked those things, those items, those questions for the last class, where we will discuss. I think I already gave you guys hint as well. Live examples, tweaking up your resume, or tips to how to keep the interview in your favor, and also same thing over here, like certification routes. I have testimonials from others, test students on my previous training. Even they were from non-IT. Trust me, after taking the training, within 2 weeks, they prepared themselves and they got the certification of PSM1, got it clear, first attempt. They only paid $150 to scrum.org, and then they got it PSM1 certification cleared. So I mean, again, this is up to you guys how well you are prepared for that, and there is definitely easier route to take the certification without expending so many dollars. For example, Scrum Alliance, they have a proper training. 2 days training is required to take the exam, but the exam is halwa, right? It's very easy. So, but again, you will be spending some dollars, like $400 or 350. These days are really cheaper. It used to be $900 or $1,000. Again, I'm talking about it, but these things, these discussions, these topics are for the last class, where when we will wrap up everything. I'll make sure I address those. Okay. Will this course? Oh,
So
sorry.
what is the difference between CMS and PCM certification?
CSM, PSM1, yeah, those are all piece of certificate that qualifies you for a Scrum Master job. Other than that, those are the same. CSM stands for Scrum Certified Scrum Master, which is a vendor is being provided or issued by Scrum Alliance, accredited also. Of course, their certification is accredited and honored. Scrum.org have their own flavor of certification, which is called, they call it PSM. PSM 1, 2, and 3, Professional Scrum Master 1, Professional Scrum Master 2, 3. So their exam a little bit tough, but they give you opportunity to take the exam without any training. So all you have to do is just pay $150 and you have 30 days. You can use their material that they provide you, or any training videos or material, whatever they have in there after you signing up. And then you can take the exam within 30 days. I believe it's 30 days, yes. But you have to go to the 2 days training for Scrum Alliance standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
And again, there's no difference between CSM or PSM. Don't get caught into which certification easy or are more valuable to the other. It's all about vendors and their guidelines and standards. CSM is very easy. You can even take the exam. Really, it's very easy, but it's 2 days training. That's why they take the advantage of those 2 days training. Take the money out of you guys, and then bring the instructors or online or remote settings. Since these are pandemic, after pandemic, those are really cheaper one. $300, $350. I see $350 least ones, $390. Will this course again same will be enough to appear for certification? Yes, definitely. But again, don't only 100% rely on these contents. There are so many rich contents out there, good ones, that you guys also can look at it and review. Again, we are not, as IEC Hussaini, we are not affiliated to Scrum Alliance or Scrum.org, right? So please use their contents. They have they have really great good contents on their websites as well, that you guys can take a look and prepare yourself. As I mentioned, 2 students got the certification of PSM1 after this training within 2 weeks. So, but they did not 100% relied only on my training. Again, Scrum Guide is really, you have to consume it. This is the baseline for your Scrum qualification, and then look around the other material. Okay. I know I addressed it, but I'll keep it as a placeholder, so we can come back for the last class. Okay. Anything else? How you guys find this session? Again, I just want to make sure you guys okay, and I hope you guys will fully utilize the pointing poker. Please do that, play with that, and also as a part of homework, come back and reply back or email me with your estimates of those animals that we talked about. I know there was a humor of about desi chicken in the chat, but again, enjoy it, make it more interactive, be engaged. If you take it easy in a way that if you do multitasking, you're not focused, then focus is the key as well, right? And that's how you encourage your teams to be focused.